off, game on, heels off, game on, heels off, game on, heels off, game on, heels off, game on. It's the game day, diva theme song. Heels off, game on. It's the game day, diva theme song. Make some noise if you ready for the stats. Make some noise if you ready for the chat. It's your game day, diva.
Hey guys, it's good to see you again. Welcome to this episode of Heels Off, Game On. And before I get into it, I just wanted to ask if you could go to YouTube, put in the Sports Talk Diva, click on Heels Off, Game On, subscribe, follow, share, like, make comments, all that good stuff. I would certainly appreciate it. Now, let's get into it. I want to get into a recap of last weekend's games. And I'll start off with college football. Some of the games that I did mention that would be worth watching, and some pretty good matchups. Well, there were some disappointments and there were some good games, but the first one was Iowa and Iowa State. That one was a pretty good game. It ended up being 16-13. Iowa State won that one, but they battled. That was a really good game. That was a 12 o'clock game, so it was a good game. The next one I thought that was a pretty good game to watch. It was interesting. Was Ole Miss and Kentucky. Ole Miss did win that one 30-23, but that was a good game to watch. The real crusher, the real disappointing one that wasn't even worth even tuning into was Oregon and Oklahoma State. Oregon crushed them 69-3. No contest there. That wasn't even worth watching. So I knew Oregon would win that game. I just didn't think it would be like that. It was bad. One of the biggest upsets of the weekend by far was Florida and South Florida. South Florida actually defeated Florida. I mean, it was 18-16. It was only 2 points, but Florida was not supposed to lose to Florida State. They actually were ranked. Florida was ranked going into that game. They have since dropped out of the top 25, so they're not even in the top 25 now. And I'll kind of touch on the top 10 and a little bit about the top 25 here in a minute. One of the biggest disappointing games for me, because I am a fan, was watching my Clemson Tigers. I will talk about them on every episode because that is my team. Very disappointed though. We struggled. We got the win. So one may say, well, what's the problem? You got the win. It's how we got it. It's what we had to do. And of course, we fought back, surely. But we should have never been put in that situation to where we go into halftime losing to Troy. No disrespect to Troy. Troy has a good squad. But Clemson started out the season ranked number 4. Like, the AP thought that they were the 4th best team in the country. Well, they're not. Okay? They're my team. And I call it like I see it. They're not. Okay? They went into this game, after losing to LSU, they went into this game ranked number 8. Okay? So I thought, okay, we'll get back on track. We'll blow them out. We'll do what we need to do. We didn't. Like I said, we got the W, but there was something off with this team. There was something really off. I don't know. I was just lost for words, and I still am kind of baffled as to what I witnessed, and I can only hope that going forward, we will show up much better. And the schedule is going to get tough, so they better really tighten up. They have since dropped out of the top 10, rightfully so. So they're ranked number 12 right now. Okay, so I'll go into the top 10 a little bit. I know there's, top 25. I never touch on the whole top 25, but I did want to talk about the top 10. Of course, still sitting at number one is Ohio State. Then you got Penn State, you got LSU, you got Oregon, you got Miami, you got Georgia, you got Texas, Notre Dame, Illinois, and Florida State rounds out the top 10. Florida State actually jumped because they were 14 last week. They jumped to number 10. So they round out the top 10. However, in the top 25, this year it's a record high of 11 SEC teams in the top 25. Okay, 11, y'all. 1-1. In the top 25, you got LSU, you got Georgia, you got Texas, you got South Carolina, you got Oklahoma, you got Tennessee, you got Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama, Auburn, and Missouri. Rounding out that top 25 of those 11 teams that are coming from the SEC. So one would say, okay, is SEC going to be back to the dominance that they've had for so many years in college football, winning championship after championship? If it wasn't Alabama, it was Georgia or LSU or somebody. So will the SEC reign supreme this year in college football? Not so fast, because you know what? You still got Ohio State to deal with, Penn State in the Big Ten. So we'll see who comes out victorious there. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the recap of the NFL. Okay, there were some key games that I mentioned in my last episode to be on the lookout for. One of the interesting ones, of course, was the Steelers and the Jets. We all know the story. Justin Fields was playing for the Steelers last year. Aaron Rodgers was playing for the Jets last year. Now they're playing for the opposite team. So Aaron Rodgers goes into, 82-year-old Aaron Rodgers goes into New York. And they were victorious. 34-32, they got the winning field goal. And, of course, Aaron Rodgers is not 82, guys. He's only 41. I was just kidding. But, he talked a lot of smack and talked about, how he was really glad to get the dub, and kind of stick it to the organization a little bit, as if to say, what, you guys let me go too soon. Well, no, they let you go because you didn't do anything last year. You played like crap. You really did not do anything. I personally thought you were finished, and was surprised when the Steelers didn't draft a quarterback with their first pick. I mean, I guess they knew all along that, they were going to get you and you guys were going to come to terms, and ultimately they got you. Okay, they got Aaron Rodgers. We'll see what he does. I mean, it was one game, and, he looked good. It looked like he could still, do Aaron Rodgers things, like what Aaron Rodgers does. So we'll see what happens there. One of the other interesting games that actually took place on Friday night was Kansas City and the Chargers. That game, remember I said it was being played in Brazil. Well, I don't know if it would have mattered where they were, where the game was being played, because the Chargers came ready. Okay, that defense looked solid. Now, the Chiefs were able to move the ball on them, but the Chargers got the stops when they needed it to, when they needed to. The Chiefs defense, they have some work to do. They actually gave up 318 yards to quarterback Justin Herbert. Yeah, 318 yards and 3 touchdowns. So that defense struggled to stop them. The secondary, the struggle showed with L'Jarius Sneed being gone. So the Chiefs have some work to do. Now, I have picked them in my last episode when I went around in the different divisions. I still stick with the Chiefs to take that division. I would never count them out. They can and probably will turn it around, because it's still, once again, it's still too early. There's a lot of games to be played, but I tell you, I really liked what I saw in the Chargers for that game. Now, The other big game was the Lions and the Packers. Okay. Yeah, I'm not too sure that the Lions, I picked them to take that division. After week one, I've changed that to Green Bay. The reason why I say, and of course it is just one game, but I just have a feeling that the Lions are missing their OC and their DC. I think they miss them. They just did not get it done. Green Bay, Jordan Love, the defense looked good. Micah came in, had his first sack as a Green Bay Packer, and he looked good. Micah looked good. I think as time goes on, he gets in better shape, and there's more continuity with the players. He's going to be. I always say he's a one-man wrecking crew, and listen, he is, and he was, because at times they had to double team him, and he still got the sack, y'all. So hey, Micah's going to do what Micah does. Now, Green Bay, they look like they could represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. That's how good they look. Once again, I'm not getting all crazy because it's just one game, but with the addition of Micah Parsons, I really truly do believe that yes, they brought him in. They paid him a whole lot of money. Okay, guys, they paid him a whole lot of money. They paid him more than what Dallas had offered. They paid him a lot of money to take it to the next level, and that next level is representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. Do I think they can get there if they keep that consistency up? The key to me is definitely going to be the consistency with a lot of these teams week in and week out. Can they get it done? So that is yet to be seen. So we'll see what happens there. Now, baby, let me tell you the game of the weekend. That was the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills. I mean, what a game. It ended up being a 1-point game where the Bills end up coming back from a 15-point deficit, guys. They came back. Now, I will say this, and of course, I still do believe that that's going to be a preview of the AFC Championship game. I believe it's going to be the Bills and the Ravens, even though, once again, I'm not going to count those Chiefs out. They're going to find a way to get in there somewhere. But I still think it may be the year of the Ravens and the Bills to be in the AFC Championship game if either one of them can get past the Kansas City Chiefs. But that game was definitely a good one. Now, the Ravens, I had them as, on my last episode, I talked about them being one of the better defenses, one of the top defenses in the NFL. This, guys, was not a defensive game at all because, as you can see, the score being 41-40, both defenses gave up a lot of points, okay? Both defenses gave up a lot of points, and I expected the Ravens defense to be a little better than they actually were. And, once again, maybe they'll turn it around. But I was really kind of surprised that they gave up the kind of points that they gave up. And they actually gave the ball back to Josh Allen. And when they gave the ball back to Josh Allen, of course, he did what Josh Allen does, and he finds somebody and, they end up winning the game. So that was a great game. Like I said, I think that's a preview of more to come with those two teams. So that's a wrap up of last week's games, except for my Dirty Birds. I saved them for last because you know what? That's my team. Clemson is my team in college. The Atlanta Falcons, the Dirty Birds, that's my team in the NFL. I was so pumped. We were all pumped it was like, you know what, rise up, rise up. And we did, but we fell down. And that one hurt. I mean, it's a division game, 23-20, we lost to Tampa Bay at home. MP9, Michael Penix, looked solid. He really did. I mean, granted, there were some misses. There were a couple overthrown passes, things like that. I really felt like he could have moved around a little more earlier in the game. He did what he did at the end of the game. We all saw that, and he did great things and got us in the end zone. But I thought earlier in the game, and I don't know if this is just due to the play calling, because some of that play calling, I just don't know. Of course, you never want to play Monday morning quarterback. That's why they're paid to do what it is they do. We sit and we observe. So, but I just thought some of the play calling at the times that the calls were being made, it wasn't the right call for what the play should have been. So, the play calling and offensive coordinator Zach Robinson, I don't know. I just don't know about him. We'll see as the season goes on how that turns out. But Michael Penix did not run the ball as much as I thought he maybe could have, should have. Bijan, for being one of the top running backs in the league, did not have that kind of game on Sunday. He did not. He didn't rush. He didn't rush for over 100 yards. There were some drop passes. Drake dropped a couple of balls. There were times where Michael Penix was rushed. Okay, I know we've got some injuries on the offensive line, and at times it showed. He was definitely rushed, and I thought maybe that's when he could have just been a little more mobile and got out of that pocket quick. When you saw that the line collapsing on him and took off and, hey, get a first down. But be that as it may, I thought MP9 was solid. He was poised, and I didn't feel like the moment was too big for him at all. He seemed very much in control and very poised. So I like what I see in him. I thought some of the key reasons for the loss, one was penalties. We got to be a little more disciplined. We can't have, roughing the passer calls, that sort of thing. We got to be a little more disciplined. Once again, the drop balls and the execution, of, at times. So those were some of the key things. And of course, we all know the big one was Koo missing the kick. Okay. It would have tied the game. It wasn't going to be the winning field goal, but it would have been the tying field goal, which, Koo, that's what you're paid to do. Okay? Kick field goals, kick it through the upright, go straight through, get 3 points. That's what you're paid to do. You didn't do that. Okay, so I'm not placing the blame solely on Koo. I'm not even going to do that because, like I said, there are times where our defense let us down. Even when Koo missed the kick, we still should have had pressure on Baker Mayfield. He found Emeka Ibuka. And remember, and if I said his name wrong, y'all look it up, get the pronunciation right. But Emeka Ibuka, the rookie out of Ohio State, scored 2 touchdowns, not 1, but 2 as a rookie. Now, I don't know that last one, if it was blown coverage or not. I don't know. Jesse Bates, I think he was maybe he was on Mike Evans. I don't know what was happening where Emeka ran that post route and next thing you know, he's scoring. Okay. Like I said, rookie. Now, our rookies, on the other hand, James Pierce, Jalen Walker, they were first-round draft picks. We even gave up some picks for James Pierce. It didn't happen on Sunday. Those guys were not effective. They were not as effective as they should have been and what I thought they should have been. So we'll see how that plays out. Once again, I know they're rookies, but hey, there was a rookie on the other side with Tampa Bay and their wide receiver in Emeka, and he did his thing against us. Okay, so the whole coup thing, I know that they have brought other kickers in to compete with Coup. So he's either going to be in on Sunday or he's out. Simple as that. They are going to compete for that. They're going to compete for that role, and we'll see on Sunday who wins it. They brought somebody in and signed them. I don't have that information yet. By the time I do my next episode, I will have it. But that was it on the Falcons. I really was looking for us to rise up, and we fell down. So, but you know what? We'll get back up. One way or the other, we'll get back up. So there's always this Sunday. So another thing that I did want to talk about, I wanted to talk about some of the biggest stories in the NFL this year. And you guys can let me know what you think. Just a few things that I wanted to throw out there. Who do you think will be the MVP this season? Will it be Patrick Mahomes? Will it be Lamar Jackson? Will it be Josh Allen? Will it be Joe Burrow? Or will it be Jaden Daniels? So who's your pick for MVP? And of course, like I said, it's early, but any of those guys I think have that superstar potential and ability to be MVP. But who do you like early on to be MVP? Also, another question I would pose is, will the Bears make the playoffs? Now, I saw some good things yesterday early on with the Bears. Caleb Williams, under the new head coach, Ben Johnson, I thought maybe, they were really going to take this thing. Well, they didn't. They lost. They let the Vikings come back, and the Vikings got the dub. So I don't know if the Bears will make the playoffs, what they're going to do, but we'll see, and we'll see how Caleb can rebound and do what he needs to do this season. The other question is, will the Bengals make a playoff run? I was really a little disappointed. I would say I'm not a big Bengals fan, but just as a football fan and what I expected out of the Bengals, they did not deliver. I talked about how they would score all these points on offense because they have such an explosive offense with Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. They only scored 17 points, and that was against Cleveland. So I don't know. I don't know what kind of push they'll make. Defense is still, well, of course, Cleveland does have Myles Garrett, and he's one of the best in the business. And he was putting the heat on Burrow. So, you can never, with Myles Garrett being in there, he is going, once again, he's a one-man wrecking crew. So he did his job. But we'll see if the Bengals can make a push for the playoffs this year. One of the other big stories and questions would be, will Brock Purdy bring back the 49ers to the dominance that they had a few years ago and make the playoffs? Now, there for a minute, and of course I watched that game, saw some of the highlights. Brock Purdy had, I believe, 2 picks. I thought, okay, is he going back? Is he regressing? What's going on with him? Of course, only one game, so we'll see what happens. They did get the dub. They moved on to be victorious. So we'll see what happens there. Now, another question is, will them Cowboys make the playoffs this year? Once again, in my Cowboys recap, I did talk about that the Cowboys, I felt that they looked better. They looked better than I expected them to look. Dak was on. Of course, we all know CeeDee Lamb dropped passes. That's gone. Is done. We move on from that, and I'm sure he'll move on from that as well. I really think that one of the big differences is their head coach, Brian Schottenheimer. I think that is going to play a big role for them this year. I think they got a good, solid head coach, and I look for the Cowboys to be in the mix. I really feel like they will make the playoffs. I mean, you can let me know or put in the comments or whatnot, but will they make the playoffs? That's one of the other big stories of 2025. What level of success will Aaron Rodgers have? And will this be his final season? So that will be, that remains to be seen, of course. But what level of success do you think Aaron Rodgers will have? And will this be his final season, or should it be his final season? But I guess, once again, maybe that will be determined on, how he plays the rest of the year and, how far he can take the Steelers. And of course, if he can take them to the playoffs and they make a little run, well, hey, he may be back. But that's another question of some big stories of 2025 in the NFL. The next one would be, will Saquon Barkley run for over 2,000 yards again? I'm going to say no. He's special. He is really special. And I don't know if he'll get close to that again. I really don't know. I don't think he'll rush for 2,000 yards again. But that's another question for some of the big stories of 2025. And then, how much of an impact do you think Micah will have with the Packers? As I mentioned earlier, I believe that they can be a Super Bowl team. Of course, the Eagles, they could be right back there as well. So they'll make a strong push. But I really do like what I see in the Packers. And I feel like Green Bay brought Micah in. They paid him a lot of money, guys. I'm saying a lot of money, okay? They paid him a lot of money to produce, to make a difference, and to take them to that next level. That next level is being in the NFC Championship game and representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. That's it. Plain and simple. That's why he's there. So does he have some pressure on him? I would pose that question. Does Micah have pressure on him to be great this year? I think he does. I think he does with the amount of money that they paid him. Will he live up to it? Absolutely, I think he will. He is just that one-man wrecking crew that I really do believe will be a future Hall of Famer. He's a special player, guys. So I really feel like, he'll be the X factor in taking them to that next level. Now, one of the other things that I wanted to talk about, I'm going to be doing some segments that I like to call Deep Dive Diva Talk. That's Deep Dive Diva Talk. And my Deep Dive Diva Talk for this segment is on the running backs and the value of the running backs. I feel like, when you look at the running backs and how their value has dropped, it's very interesting. I mean, for decades, running backs were the face of NFL offenses. Backs like Barry Sanders, Adrian Peterson, LaDainian Tomlinson, Emmitt Smith. They were the face of the NFL. I mean, they were those guys. Those were the days with those backs. It's changed, however, and let's look at why the running back value has dropped. One, I would say, is their short shelf life. Okay, not sure if you know this or not, but the average running back career is the average. I'm not saying it, I don't want to be like, well, that's not true. I'm not saying that there aren't running backs that play in the league for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, whatever the case may be. But the average is 2.5 years. Okay, it's the shortest of any position. So that's one of the reasons for the dropping of the value of running backs. The second is, by the second contract, many of the running backs are actually past their prime, believe it or not. By the second contract, guys, they're past their prime. Analytics actually show that passing is far more efficient than rushing. So that's what the data is supporting right now, that passing is actually more efficient than rushing. So another reason why the value of running backs it's dropped. You've got late round picks like Isaiah Pacheco and Aaron Jones that have actually produced. So, and running backs who catch passes, they're actually more valued now. So, teams tend to, spread out the carries between 2 to 3 backs to actually save the wear. So just wanted to take a deep dive into that. Interesting to see, how you feel about the running back position and how much it has changed. Okay. Now, that's it on the college football and the NFL. I did want to touch on the WNBA, guys. Last games are coming up on Thursday. September the 11th, we'll be done. Okay, we'll be done with regular season play. Playoffs actually start on Sunday, the 14th. So by Thursday, we will know what the brackets look like. So of those 8 teams, we'll know who's playing who and so on and so forth. So I'll cover that in my next episode. I will say that A'ja Wilson with the Las Vegas Aces. Well, first of all, the Aces have won 14 straight games, guys. They're hot, y'all. They are hot. So, they could be that team that could maybe knock Minnesota out. I don't know. A'ja Wilson is making a strong push, another push to be MVP. Okay? She's already won it a few times. She is making a strong push to say, you know what, guys, I'm still that girl. She's a bad one. She's a force to be reckoned with. So we have got to watch out for A'ja. Who can stop her? Yeah, I don't know. But I will say this too. Last night, the Atlanta Dream, their head coach, made history by having more wins in the first year of a WNBA coach in WNBA history. So no one's ever won as many games as a first-year head coach as the Atlanta Dream head coach. So congrats to Coach Carl on being, making history in the WNBA. I like what he has done with the Atlanta Dream, and I expect us to definitely be in there in terms of when the finals hit. But once again, I will touch on that a little more in my next episode. Lastly, I would say, you know what? I did have some HBCU. I don't want to forget about my HBCU. Mike Vick got his first win as head coach over Virginia State, 34-31. And actually, Coach Deshaun Jackson got his first win over Albany, 37-32. Okay, so they both got their first wins. Yay! Of course, the hot teams always seem to be Jackson State, South Carolina State, Alabama State, North Carolina Central. So we'll keep an eye on what's going on in HBCU football, okay? And lastly, I did want to touch on track and field. I am a big track and field girl. Love it, okay? This weekend, actually on the 13th through the 21st, we have the World Athletic Championships. They will be held in Tokyo. This is equivalent to the Olympics, okay? So you've got some big name athletes who will be competing. So this is going to be big, guys. It's almost like watching all of our stars that were in the Olympics. The only one that won't be there that I know of right now is our 200-meter gold medalist in the Olympics, which was Gabby Thomas. She's hurt. She's been hurt now, I think, for a little while. She actually lost some races early on in some things that she competed in, maybe where she placed, but she got second or third. She didn't get first. So she decided to pull out because of the injury, taking care of her body and taking care of her mental state. So we're rooting for Gabby to get back. But that is a wrap for this episode of Heels Off, Game On. Stay tuned for some more updates in my next episodes. And until then, have a victory. No. Have a week of victory and success. I said have a victory. No, you are victorious. You claim your victory, okay, over whatever it is you want to claim it over. But have a week of victory and success, guys. Take care.